2 days ago, I did a fundraiser for a temple, a Jewish temple, and so I decided for the first time in my life I was going to do a concert of all Jewish-related stuff: Gershwin, Irving Berlin, and Oscar Hammerstein, Fiddler on the Roof, all that stuff. So here is the fanfare to open a Rhapsody in Jew. The little highlights from Rhapsody in Blue. Indeed, George Gershwin is perhaps the best known of the Jewish composers, and you may not know even some of the very famous songs that he wrote. He did I Got Rhythm. He did Embraceable You. He did Summertime from Porgy and Bess. He did Someone to Watch Over Me. Here is a medley of George Gershwin. see the keyboard. Berlin. No, George Gershwin. Probably the most famous Jewish music is Fiddler on the Roof. So here is a little medley from Fiddler on the Roof. If I was a rich man, all day long I'd biddy biddy bomb. If I was a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to boycott. Lord, who made the lion and the lamb, you decreed I should be what I am. But would it spoil some vast eternal plan if I was a wealthy man? Fiddler on the Roof. This is the sad part of our show, this concert I did for Temple Beth Shalom in Napa, a little fundraiser, and wanting to recapitulate for you. No reason for it to go into the ether. This way, at least it'll be permanent for any of you who choose to watch it. Anyway, as I said, this is the sad part. I don't normally wear this kind of get-up. This is what my father would wear if he were to give a concert. And everything else that I'm doing for you today is custom to this, to the concert and recapitulating it for you, except for the following story. And I'm not telling it to you because I promised my father I would, although I did do that. It's because it has a very important lesson. It may be the most important lesson that has ever been taught to me, and may be more valuable today than ever in my life. The year was 1939. The town was Scherpz, Poland. My dad was a teenager and lived with his parents in a bucolic little town. And nobody locked their doors. And one day there was a knock on the door, and it was two Nazis in black boots. And unlike in the movies, they didn't yell. One was silent. The other whispered, "You will be out of your house with only what you can carry on your back by noon tomorrow, or else." And the next day there weren't two Nazis. There were 12, and 2 trucks. And now they weren't whispering. They went into all the Jewish households and said, "Raus!" They took my grandfather, grandmother, and my father out. Grandfather and grandmother into one truck, my father, very able-bodied, in another. My father never saw his parents again. My father was taken to a place called the Panari Death Camp. Why? It's a death camp. Why didn't he die? Because he was thrown into a pit where the Nazis had shot Jews. This was before the gas chambers. So they were just shooting them, throwing them into the pit and shooting them. My father was one of 37 men who were in the pit to bury them. On, I believe, the second night of that, the 37 men took the spoons that they had been given for their gruel and dug a tunnel under the barbed wire fence. Of course, the Nazis saw it right away and started shooting, but my father was able to race into the woods and escape, where he lived thanks to the good Christians who took care of him. At the end of the war, he was dropped on a cargo boat, dropped in the Bronx, New York, without a penny to his name, no money, no English, no family, no education, only the scars of that Holocaust torture. What did he do? No job was beneath him. He took a job sewing shirts in a factory in Harlem for minimum wage. And what did he do at the end of the day? Did he say, I'm a Holocaust survivor, I'm a victim, I worked hard all day in the factory, I'm going to get shit-faced? No. He went to Roosevelt High School, night school, to learn English. Because he knew if he didn't speak good English, he would be forever consigned to minimum wage work. And there he happened to meet my mother, who was doing the same thing, also a Holocaust survivor, Auschwitz, who survived, I'll simply say, because she was pretty. And she too was trying to learn English. What did he do on Saturday morning? Did he say, I suffered the Holocaust, I worked all day in the factory, at night I went to school, I'm going to watch Saturday morning football? No. He went to the owner of the factory and said, can I take these shirts and buy them from you for $1 and sell them on the street for $1.50 out of a cardboard box? And he did. What did he do with the money? Did he spend it? No. You see, my mom and him and my sister and I were living on a horrible 4th floor walk-up in a horribly dangerous Bronx neighborhood. Not only was it dangerous, but it was under the elevated train that roared 24/7 so nobody could sleep. Of course, no air conditioning. And so he wanted to save up so that he could start a little business. And he finally saved up to afford the only little crappy store in the worst neighborhood in Brooklyn that he could afford. 105 Moore Street in Brooklyn. You can Google it now. It's still a terrible neighborhood. Tiny store, and on one side there was a Puerto Rican deli specializing in chicharrones, deep-fried pork intestines, and the smell of that merged with the smell from the store on the other side, which was a live chicken market. It was quite a smell. Anyway, the store was so small that he had to store most of the merchandise on folding tables in front of the store. And as I said, it was a very dangerous neighborhood. And on the weekends, the kids out of school would come by the tables, grab a box of shirts or a box of sunglasses, and run away. He couldn't afford a security guard, so when I was 12 years old, and if you think I look nerdy now, you should have seen what I looked like then, he had me be a security guard. And one day, when business was slow, I remember this moment more vividly than any moment in my life. There was a parking meter in front of the store. He was standing with his elbow on one side of the parking meter, me on the other, my elbow, like mirror image. And when you're 12, you start to stop being quite so self-absorbed. And I said, Daddy, how come you so rarely talk about the Holocaust? And he stiffened, which is something he rarely did. And he said, Martin, the Nazis took 5 years from my life. I won't give them 1 minute more. He said, Martin, never look back. Always take the next step forward. And I have had the privilege of having been a career and personal coach to 6,000 people, some of the most successful people on planet Earth, and some real strugglers. And one of the defining differences between the two groups, both groups have had failures. But the successful ones are far more likely to have followed my father's advice. Stop looking back. Always take the next step forward. It's served me well my whole life, and I think most of my clients. One more little story. I'm dead, so I wore this in honor of my dad. There's one more little story. My father was not really a musician. My mother was the musical one. My dad wasn't. But he would sing one little song. Offen Prippersteg brennt der Feier. I don't remember the rest. Anyway, in preparing for this concert, I looked it up. And though it was a 19th century old folk song, but in the Holocaust, a Jewish-Polish poet changed the words to the words my father sang, which was a song of resistance. Something like, we are proud of smuggling the food and water that they won't let us have in the ghetto. And that's what my father was singing all the time. Very touching to me. All right, end of the sad part of the show. My mother, Auschwitz survivor, and yet she was the opposite. She could be best defined in 2 words, party girl. So here is a medley of the kind of songs my mother loved. Would sing, dance around the house, that's it. Mother's favorite serious song is one I think is my favorite too, Autumn Leaves. parents enjoyed great health through all of their life until my dad was, at 86, was planting tomatoes for the next season when he had a stroke and died. My mother was very active until she would come to see my wife and I in plays and things. And at the end of the play, she would get on stage, and in her 80s, she would do kicks like the Rockettes. But in her late 80s, she did fail, not physically. She just got demented in the last few years, and died at 89, very peacefully. And I live in California. She still lived in New York, and I called her every day. And the favorite part of our daily phone call, she wanted it every day, even to the end, was she wanted me to sing my Yiddish Mama to her, and that's what I'm going to do. A little bit of it. My Yiddish Mama, I need you more than ever now. My Yiddish Mama, I long to sing, to kiss your wrinkled brow. I long to hold your hand, as I did when days gone by, and ask forgiveness for the things I did that made you cry. How few were your pleasures, you never cared for fashion style. Your jewels and your treasures, you saw them in your son's smile. For I know that I owe what I am today to that dear little lady, so old and blonde, she was blonde to the end, to that wonderful Yiddish mama, mama of mine. As I mentioned at the outset, another of the iconic Jewish composers is Irving Berlin. And he may be the ultimate in DEI. In addition to doing God Bless America, which is something you wouldn't necessarily expect Irving Berlin to have done, he did Easter Parade, and he did White Christmas, the first DEI guy. So a little bit of the two of those. You see Fred Astaire doing this? He did in the movie the same title. White Christmas. All right, we are in the era of DEI, so I figured I better do one thing that is an homage to African Americans. So the father of the kind of music that I was playing there, kind of ragtimey, is Scott Joplin, African American, and his iconic song is Maple Leaf Rag. Now, just maybe, a white guy, but maybe I could channel him somehow from the hereafter and be able to play Maple Leaf Rag. I'm going to start slower to give it time for the channeling to occur, and then just maybe I'll be able to speed up. We'll find out. Maple Leaf Rag. Okay, back to the Jewish stuff. I'm going to play Exodus for you. And we did some sing-along there, so I was looking up the lyrics, and I was shocked. Maybe initially shocked, but then on reflection, not shocked. I put in the search term in Google, Exodus lyrics, expecting to see the famous song, Exodus, from the movie. But there were two vaguely, or not so vaguely, anti-Semitic African-American hip-hop songs of the same title that came up first. 2 or 3 or 4 of those came up first, and I had to dig way down, and it was Pat Boone, way down deep in the Google search results, that had the lyrics to Exodus. It reminded me of how our media really does filter, and it makes me sad and, to be honest, scared. But anyway, Exodus, it was a song of resistance. Remember FDR, even though after Kristallnacht, where Jews were killed and killed and killed, refused to enter World War II until 1942 or 41, after millions more Jews were killed. And he even turned back the ship, originally called the St. Louis, which was the Exodus ship, filled with Jewish concentration camp escapees. He wouldn't take them in. He turned them back. And they had to end up going to Cyprus. Anyway, but we tend to venerate FDR as his hero. I don't know why we don't mention this absolutely horrific genocide that he allowed. Anyway, Exodus starts soft but ends up a song of resistance. the same vein, the Jews have indeed been, to use the current word, oppressed for 2,000 years, starting with the burning down by the Romans of the Jewish temple, through the Inquisition, where they were forced to convert to Christianity, be burned at the stake, the pogroms in Russia, where villages were just invaded by the Russian Tsar's police, Cossacks, through the Holocaust, through studies that say now that 85% of Jews in Europe feel afraid for their safety. And in fact, every time I turn on the TV, Jews are disproportionately shown as rich, greedy, crafty. And indeed, when I searched on, again, Google images on Jews, I would see them in the hyper-religious Hasidim in the black suits or whatever, these stereotypes that portray maybe by far less than 1% of Jews who are very assimilated. So it's making me sad, and I'm very concerned about double standards by which how Jews are and Israel is judged compared to other countries and other peoples. When Jews have contributed so much in literature, women's rights, science, and entertainment, music, Steven Spielberg films, etc., but I won't go further there. But here is a medley of these kind of classic Jewish songs that portray the sadness that undergirds a lot of the humor that, Jewish comedians aren't famous, but this is from Schindler's List. This is a classic Israeli song, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. This is the Jewish national anthem. It's called Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem. In the beginning of this concert, I mentioned that Rodgers and Hammerstein were legendary, and probably their most famous music that they wrote was for the show Sound of Music, which again, ironically, is a Christian theme, obviously about nuns and Maria the Nun. And so here's a medley from Rodgers and Hammerstein I'm going to start with, I think I'll start with You'll Never Walk Alone, then Doe a Deer from Sound of Music, and then also from the Sound of Music, Climb Every Mountain. Rodgers and Hammerstein. And I ended the concert with the most famous Jewish song, Hava Nagila. And everybody sang along. And so that was an abbreviated version of the concert that I did for Congregation Beth Shalom fundraiser in Napa. And I hope you enjoyed it, George, and especially perhaps if you're not. As usual, I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel, which mainly consists of my performing my short stories that I've written, or my essays, but occasionally punctuated with some music of various sorts. In any event, thanks for watching. I'm Marty Nunko.